So I'm here with Billy Bragg, and I gotta say real quick, it's not often that you see a show and you think, okay, I'll remember that for the rest of my life. But this show was one of them, and this is the first time I've ever been able to say thank you to the artist. So thank you for that. That was a phenomenal show.
I enjoyed it.
Life's a Ride in its entirety.
Yeah, well, it's only 17 minutes long. It's not like I can usually snick it out.
Sure, but how often are you going to see something like that? It was very
true.
special. And so have you had a good festival here at the Americana
Fest? Really
Fest?
great time. I mean, the Americana Music Association have been so hospitable, inviting me to come over, showing me, not just what all the amazing stuff that they're doing, but connecting me with people, giving me the opportunity to do a show with Roseanne Cash and Richard Thompson, and I've just had the best time. Yeah, my feet haven't touched the ground, but I've had a great time.
Sure. Now, on your website, you have a quote, and I'm pretty sure this is direct. It says, "It's time to have our revolution and cut out the middleman."
Start your own revolution.
Start your own revolution and cut out the middleman.
Waiting for the great leap forward. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Could you expand on that in your own words?
Well, when I first started out, in order to get the word out about my music, I used to have to rely on the newspapers and the radio. I would have to get my record played on the radio. I would have to get my interview into the music papers. I'd have to get my records into the shops. I was, 1, 2 or 3 steps removed from the actual people who were getting into what I was doing. Now, because of the internet, I'm able to speak to people only 1 step removed from you, Ron. I mean, the people that are watching this now, they're just 1 step away from you. You are facilitating me speaking to people out there who are, vaguely interested in what I'm doing, and that's a real sort of complete step change from how it used to be, and the gap between the artist and the fan is now so narrow that it's possible not only for me to communicate directly, through Twitter and Facebook and through blogs, but also to sell stuff directly through my website, and that allows me to be able to make a living without selling millions of records.
So, in terms of activism, someone that's been socially conscious your whole career, do you feel that we're in an easier place to spread messages, to raise awareness?
I think so, because before I had to rely on, as I say, I had to rely on newspapers and radios, and if they thought about me that I was a bit political, they wouldn't put me on the air, they wouldn't put me in their paper. Now with the internet, I'm able to reach out beyond that, get retweeted, have my blog spread around and stuff like that. So I think, yeah, it is much more accessible, but at the same time the audience is disparate. In the old days when there wasn't so much media, everything used to be focused on, the NME, John Peel on Radio 1. So if you hit big there, you could reach a lot of people. Now it's disparate, so you have to talk to a lot more people. But ultimately, I think you have the ability to reach more people through social media, and that in turn allows people to facilitate their own activism without having to rely on a party or a committee or any kind of filter.
Now, you mentioned something yesterday that I wanted to ask you about. I believe it was in the Acoustic Cafe interview, where you said how, similar to what you just said, sometimes people would just kind of get scared or write you off when they hear, like, a political singer, political. And I'm a comedian, and sometimes, I get labeled a political comedian, and that is sometimes a dirty word.
Yeah.
Is that something that, I mean, I know that you've definitely faced that at times during your career, but is that something that you still face regularly, and how did you kind of overcome that to become...
Well, I as I explained yesterday, I write songs about things that piss me off, basically. Sometimes that's politics, sometimes that's relationships. But basically I write songs about things that piss me off, and I come out in the dark with you all and sing them. And when everybody applauds, I don't feel so bad about them. Now, the knock-on effect of that with people who hear my records, they because so few people do politics, they lock on to the political aspects of it. It's not really political, it's more kind of topical. I want to write about stuff that's happening now. And so that topicality makes what I do, in some people's view, dangerous. Don't ask why. Spreading the word about an issue should be dangerous. I would have thought in terms of freedom of speech it would be what you want to do. But so yeah, you do get marginalised, but you have to work make sure you're finding ways to work around that. The real problem comes not in being labelled a political songwriter, but being dismissed as a political songwriter. So people saying, "Oh, I don't want to hear Billy Bragg, it'll all be politics." It's not all politics. Life isn't all politics, but it's part of it, and I'm going to talk about it. So that's the problem. It's more the people who dismiss me as a political songwriter that are a problem.
So, speaking of which, you were outspoken in regards to a lot of the phone hacking scandals, which there were some problems in your country as well as here in the United States. So I wanted to ask you, especially since you have a relationship with The Guardian, what were your feelings when you first found out about what happened to their offices when the authorities destroyed some of their information?
Yeah, that's not good. I mean, I think freedom of the press is an absolute key aspect of a civil society. And anything that infringes on that is dangerous. However, I do think that there is a case to be made for backing up the laws on how our press operate with legislation, because I think you must have some form of accountability. So I'm against the government coming in and shutting down a story because it embarrasses them, but I am in favour of being able to take someone like Rupert Murdoch to court and hold him responsible for the things that his newspapers do. So it's I realise in the United States of America under your First Amendment that kind of idea is troublesome, the idea of having legislation to control the press. But in my country we believe that you're not free if you can't hold people to account, and that's not just politicians, that's also people who have economic, social power as well. You want to hold those people to account as well. So that's why we're looking at ways of having a free press backed up by legislative rules, so that when people like Rupert Murdoch do bend the self-regulation out of shape, there's something that can come in and pull them up to account. So
it's a free press, but misinformation will be held accountable for the good of the populace.
Well, I think it's not so much about the nature of the information that we have a problem with, it's how they get it.
Okay.
And how it's, what they believe to be newsworthy. When it's just really, going through people's, invading people's privacy. We have strong views on privacy in Europe.
Mm-hmm. So the one other thing I wanted to bring up, you spoke about healthcare, which was great, by the way.
Thank you.
And, a lot of people just believe from a fundamental standpoint that, in order for a democratic experiment to work, people need to have food in their bellies, a roof over their head, and of course access to a doctor, regardless of their ability to pay. And a lot of us in the States do feel that way, but apparently not enough do. And part of the reason for that is because, the word, socialize is often demonized in our corporate media and stuff like that. But then in your country, an older democratic experiment, you kind of are doing much better in that regard. So when do you think like this will come around? Like, was there ever a point?
In the United States of America, football means something completely different from what it means in England, right?
Right.
Completely different. And unfortunately, socialism means something different in America than what it does in the UK and Europe. I am a socialist, and I don't believe that socialism is worth the name unless it is at heart a form of organised compassion. And when people ask me what kind of society I want to live in, I don't say I want to live in a socialist society or anything. I say I want to live in a compassionate society. And what I mean by that is that the rights of the individual are sacrosanct, but unless each individual is the recipient of free healthcare, free education, decent affordable housing and proper pensions, only the rich and powerful will get to express their individuality, and the rest of us will be exploited by them. So that to me is the basis for a fair and compassionate society. It's also the definition of socialism.
Thank you very much. I think that's a good spot. Thank you again so much
My
for
pleasure,
squeezing me in, Billy Bragg, and best of luck.
You're a very persistent fella, and and rightly so, because you got the interview that you were after, and I'm glad we were able to do this.
Absolutely.
And that Thai restaurant I saw you in last night was pretty good, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was. We really enjoyed it, and it was. I told my girlfriend as we were leaving, there must have been something in the water that everybody that enjoys punk rock and was in Nashville had a craving for Thai. So
The best
weird
curry,
coincidence.
It's the best curry you can get in America.
There you go.